Greetings and blessings, everyone, and welcome to Sacred Soul Dimensions. My name is Catalina, or Cata for short, and this is my soul sister, Sandra, or Sasa.
Hello.
And today we are I will be interviewing her about NDEs, or near-death experiences. But before we get into all that, I want Sandy, tell us about yourself and who you are, what you do.
Well, okay. Um, let's make this short and sweet because I got there's a lot that I do.
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, there's a lot that I do. Um, I have a bachelor's degree in metaphysical sciences. Currently working on my master's. I am an author, published author. I am also a healer, energy healer. Um, I will be starting to do meditative classes here real shortly. Um, I'm a paranormal investigator, mostly a
Yeah.
psychic, mostly a psychic investigator, for about 43 years now. Uh, well, actually, well, let's just say close to 45.
Oh, that's a
um,
long time. So you and
yeah,
I together.
yeah. My husband is with me when I do these things. Um, I do
That's
tarot readings and oracle readings. What else do I do? I have a dog. I have a cat. I have a husband who's been with me for 43 years, 40, almost 40, well, 44 almost. And we've been doing this kind of work basically since we got together. I have had my abilities as a intuitive medium since I was 5 years old. Um, have
really into that.
experience. That's how I got into the paranormal.
Okay.
um, and I've had many communications with spirits, and I do my best to try and convince spirits. You notice I'm saying convinced. I try to convince spirits to move on, not to be stuck in this physical plane. Um,
Nice. So you're
because the thing is you, unless it's like really bad spirit, you can't really force spirits to leave. You can ask them to kind of, abide by the rules of the person's house or the building or whatever, so they're not, you know, interrupting their life or
right.
whatever. Um,
Right.
but other than that, that's pretty much who I am. I am
You're a busy
64.
lady.
I'm a busy lady. Yes, I
And
do a lot.
you're six. I'm sorry, 16. What?
64.
You spring chicks there. See?
Yeah,
That's
like I
yes.
said, I've been doing this a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this discussion. NDE is abbreviation for near-death experiences.
Yes.
And I know you just said that at the age of 5 is when you started experiencing the mediumship abilities.
Yes.
So you want to get into, yeah, so from there at that point, so you were 5 years old when you first had this out of body experience, so to say. Uh, what did you first see in that realm, in that in between place?
Well, first I had double pneumonia. The
Mm.
doctor admitted me to the hospital because I was having really a lot of difficulty breathing. So they put me in an oxygen tent. A lot of you may not know what that is,
I know
but
what
it's,
that is.
yeah, you do, but a lot of younger people may not know what that is. But it's where they would take this plastic like thing and put it over your bed, and that way they didn't have to stick oxygen up your nose or
Oh,
anything.
right.
And so I was in one of those, and as the day progressed, after my parents had already left, they were actually in the waiting room
Mhm.
because back then they had big rules about visitation hours and stuff. So um, the nurses said, "Well, it's time you have to go." My mom was having a fix; she didn't want to leave me alone, but
Sure.
um,
That those are
it
the
was the
rules.
rules. Yeah, it was the rules, and they just went down to the parents' waiting room,
Mhm.
and so I don't know what time it was, but I can say that it was dark outside. Um, and there was a small, like, dim light in the room because the nurse had came in and did her last things for me and then left the room. Um,
Okay.
and I was laying there, and as I was laying there, my felt my chest felt really heavy, and so I just kind of closed my eyes and tried to breathe, and then
Hmm.
I kind of opened them for a second, and I could see this light in the room. It seemed
Okay.
like it was coming from the doorway. I can't tell you for sure because it's kind of blurry through that
Hmm.
plastic. So yeah. So anyway, I'm I'm doing that, and it kept getting bigger and bigger. The light was getting very big, and it filled the whole room basically at one point.
Okay.
And I do remember seeing a woman standing by the bed. I thought it was a nurse. I mean, being a kid, what else
Right.
would you think? And so um, I just kind of closed my eyes, and the next thing I know, I apparently had died because I was standing next to this woman who had this long, kind of flowing gown. It was kind of a lavender, really beautiful
Like,
lavender. I can't even explain the color. It was so brilliant.
hmm.
And then she kind of looked down at me, and I visualized myself as still like I looked as a kid, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I looked back on the bed, and there I was, and
You
I
saw
thought,
yourself.
okay, something's strange here, you know.
Okay.
I was kind of upset 'cause I was a little scared at that point. I mean, because being a child,
Well,
of course,
sure.
I didn't know who this person was. The next thing I know, it was like I read it someplace, and it made sense to me that it was kind of like being on an elevator that goes really fast, you know, and that's what it kind of felt like. And then we went through the roof and
Oh,
upwards, you know, into this tunnel like thing, and it was like went really fast, but it was really really dark, really black,
inside
and
the tube or the
yes,
tunnel.
yes,
So did
and
you see like stuff flying
yeah, it
by?
was
And
kind of like this is how I would describe it. It was kind of like being in a wormhole.
yeah.
Have you ever seen the movie Contact where she's going through the wormhole with
Yes,
right, and
many
it's like
times.
but you
So
don't
you
see the
see things more
yeah,
like a blur.
kind of like thing moving past you, but then
Yeah,
at the same time it's dark,
like inside
So
the tunnel.
ended up getting to where a point where I could see this speck of light. It was like in front of us. I didn't know what it was. I just kind of looking up at the looking up at the lady, said, "Okay, where are we going?" you know, that's what I was. I didn't say it, but I was thinking it. And then she kind of raised her arm and pointed because they speak telepathically, not
Right. Not
you know,
for the
yeah,
mouth.
not
Yeah.
physically. Yeah. And so we get to this place. The light got really bright, just like she was, and all of a sudden we were there, and we're in this place that I would call home. That's where we come from, where
Mm.
God resides, where
Yeah.
the angels reside, and spirits too, as well. And so we're just kind of walking. I'm seeing myself walking down this path. There's beings there. They're all kind of standing together, but not saying anything. I mean, not that I could hear anyway. So,
Well, they were speaking telepathically to each other.
right. And so
Mm.
it was kind of like being wrapped in a blanket because there was this tone. It wasn't music, but it was tones,
Was it like a
different.
hum, a different frequencies?
Yeah, yeah, kind of like a vibrational frequency, and it was like
Yeah.
all around me. But it didn't hurt my ears, and it didn't affect me in any way other than it made me feel like I was safe, like I was warm. You know,
Yeah.
everything was fine, that I was good. So I stopped being scared at that point. So we were walking through, and she's showing me what's around, and which is buildings. I mean, huge buildings. Um, I For a while I didn't remember what she said, but then as time's gone by, I've kind of, you know, it's kind of like they're giving me little bits and pieces of information
They're
about
coming back to you now.
right. And so there was buildings there. One was like the Hall of Souls. There was which is a place where they put together people put together their life plans before they come to Earth,
Mhm.
um, and where new souls obviously go. I mean, it's not really new soul. It's hard to describe, but yeah, it's where spirits
The,
go when they
be,
want to go to their when they want to come to Earth and live
to be
a
to be reborn again
right.
to their next parents that they have chosen.
Right. They even we choose our own parents. We choose our
Yes.
family. We choose anybody we're going to meet in this lifetime. They're usually in our soul tribe, basically,
Right.
kind of like what we talk about.
Yeah.
Um,
Soul
so
group.
there was the Akashic records.
Oh, you saw
There,
that?
oh yeah, I didn't get to go inside of it, but
Was it
um,
a room, a hall? What was it? What did you
it's a
see?
huge looking temple like looking thing,
Oh, wow.
and big pillars in front and stuff, and all the landscaping was luminescent. It was like having like putting on a black light and everything kind of glows.
Yeah.
That's what it's like, but not dark. It's like brilliant light. Okay. Then, so we're walking around. She's kind of pointing at things and didn't really say anything to me. I mean, she wasn't really talking to me too much. But we get to this one building, and I don't know what it was. She never really said, and it didn't have like a sign on it or anything.
Yeah.
Um, so we enter these big brass doors, or what looked like copper or brass doors
Yeah.
that went from here down to up. I mean, they were huge, and the building was huge. It's kind of like walking into a huge courthouse,
Oh,
except with big doors. I mean, the things were enormous, and so you start walking down this hallway, and you just keep going and going and going and going. I mean, it's infinite. It's like the hallway is infinite. It may not look like that on the outside, but on the inside,
that,
everything is forever in
that's what
there.
they must call the God's mansion.
Maybe so. Yeah, maybe so. I don't know because they never said, but I'll tell you what you could every wall, every door, the floor, everything was like translucent. Okay, you could see through it, but you couldn't see through it. It was like solid, but you could see. I know that doesn't
Yeah.
make any
No,
sense.
it makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
following you.
So finally, after a little while, we got to this door. It was on the left hand side of the hallway. Um, and she kind of just waved her hand, and the door opened. I don't know. Walked into this place. It looked like a garden, and in the garden was these 9 foot beings that really. You guys think that there's no that angels don't have wings, but they really do. um, they were like 9 foot, and they you couldn't. They're like not male or female. They're kind of
Androgynous.
right. Their wings go to the floor. They kind of
Okay.
drag behind them a little bit. I mean,
Cool.
you ever seen the movie Michael?
I have.
Yeah, that's yeah. Okay, it's only I'm trying to compare it so that people will
Yeah.
understand what I'm talking about. So in the middle of this room, which was enormous too, um, was these benches that were like those concrete benches you see, and they're kind of half moon shaped, like this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, well there was a bunch of them, and in the center was this old man sitting on a bench, and he had kind of long silvery hair. Well, his hair was even everything was luminescent in this place. Everything shined, twinkled. It's kind of like being
That's
in a
cool.
fantasy world, you know. And then so she, which is actually a she because my guide is a she, um,
Okay.
which I now know was my guide. Um,
Was that Ishtani?
is Donnie, yeah.
Hey.
Um, I'll tell you more about that in a minute.
No
But
problem.
anyway, so she walks me up to this man, and I'm standing in front of him, and he kind of lifts me up and puts me on his knee, and he starts talking to me telepathy wise,
Yeah.
and I asked, we our conversation seemed to be very in depth. He was telling me a lot of things, but that's one thing that I cannot remember what he said. Only little bits and pieces, like he told me his name was Eli, um, and he was the right hand of God. I remember that part, and he
That
was
was
very specific.
Jesus.
Yeah, he was very specific about that.
Mhm.
He also told me that I couldn't stay. But he had Johnny bring me to him because he was going to invoke a gift upon me when I got back in my human form.
Form.
Right.
Really?
Yeah.
So,
Which I'll tell you about again in a second. So it seemed like the conversation went on for a long time, but I don't think it did because at least not Earth time, because there's no time in
right,
the afterlife. It's
right,
irrelevant.
right.
And so when they come, like spirits come here, they can be here for 2 hours or 10 years. It doesn't matter. It's
And it's a
to
blink of an
them.
eye to
Yeah,
them.
yeah, to them, it's like a snap of the fingers or a blink of
Yeah.
an eye. So anyway, he called. Shawnee had left. I mean, I don't know where she went, but um, he kind of, I don't know. I guess thought about her maybe because she was right there again, and yes, she did appear. You know,
I figured that
um,
much. Okay.
and so I asked him again. I said, "Why can't I stay?" And his answer was, "Because you have so much to do for me
Uh-huh.
in the physical
There,
plane, in
there you
as
are.
a human." I
Yes.
said, "Okay." I'm getting cold chills. Okay.
Validation.
So
Validation.
she grabbed my hand again, and then instantly I was back in the hospital room. And she lifted me up and in her arms, kind of laying down, I
Who
guess.
did? Who did?
It's Donnie.
Okay.
And she placed me on top of my body and I sunk
You
in.
sing into
Yeah, just
that
kind
buddy.
of, yeah. And then it's like I was kind of half there and half not. And she kind of put her hand on my chest. And then,
You started
um,
breathing.
yeah, I started breathing in my eyes. I opened my eyes and she was gone. And
She did.
then
She did what she was supposed to do.
she did. And then after that, it was like, I don't
It
know.
was
It
like,
wasn't morning time, so I guess I went to sleep. I don't know, or maybe she put me to sleep. But when I woke up, it was daytime. It was morning, and my
and
mom and
no,
dad, my mom and dad were not there yet. Wasn't quite visitation time, I guess. But the nurse came in, took my blood pressure. I mean, she didn't even
they
know that
didn't
I.
even know you were gone.
No, they didn't even know I
That
was.
was before heart monitors and all that
Well,
jazz.
that's because irrelevant time there, I could have been gone 2 minutes, dead 2 minutes, and they would have never known.
Yeah,
So,
not even a
um,
minute.
anyway, so she comes in, she's doing my temperature and all that stuff, and she got this weird look on her face, like what in the heck is going on here? Because my chest was clear, I had no temperature, there was no sign of any double pneumonia whatsoever. So
Miraculous.
she goes, "Excuse me, honey," and she runs out of the room, and the doctor, I guess, was out outside of the room. I don't know, but she pulls him back in there and she goes, "This girl's healed." And he goes, "No way." You know, she had double pneumonia. How is she going to be healed? And he asked me, "How are you doing? How are you feeling?" I feel great. Can I go play? you know, I was feeling great. And so
You were
after all
healed.
that, I mean, nobody believed me. I said, "What about the nurse?" I did say this. I said, "What about the nurse lady that was helping me last night?"
And then what did the doctor say?
In the purple dress. That's what I said. And they're looking at me like, I think maybe you had too high of a temperature or something. They thought I was hallucinating. So I just left it at that. I thought maybe I was too. So went home. And this is when I saw my first spirit. So where do you want me to go? Do you want me to stop there?
So when you okay, so you left home. They took you home the same day because
Mm-hmm.
you were
Mm-hmm.
healed, and that was a miracle, no
Yep.
doubt. You were sitting on the lap of Eli. That was Jesus, the right hand of God.
Right.
And Eli is in the Bible, so he goes by many names: Yeshua, Jesus,
Yes,
Jesus, so on and so on.
I am.
Uh, I am, and So you get home and you're like, so it must have been. Did you have any fleeting thoughts like, what was that about last night? You know?
Well, I kept thinking about the nurse. Well, who I
Yeah,
thought was a nurse. I said
yeah.
I kept thinking about her, and I thought, I wonder why she wasn't there. How would I mean, think about what a child would think.
Well,
The
I
only
know.
thing, only thing I was really thinking about was getting outside and playing. Because it was fall. The leaves were around a little bit. Not quite full fall, but going into
Yeah,
fall,
just starting.
and it was kind of chilly. We lived in Illinois at the time, so fall came kind of early there for us back then, and so
Wow.
yeah.
So,
I was I think I was in school. I was in kindergarten, but my mom didn't want me to go back to school right away, so it wasn't that long. My mother was overly protective, so
well, yeah, she just
she
saw you
right. Well, she everybody thought,
jacked up
okay,
with double pneumonia, and then boom, the next day there you're all
yeah,
presto changeo.
yeah,
Hey,
whoo, hi, mom, I'm here.
I'm gonna
Um,
play.
but I don't remember the whole details about
Yeah.
why I wasn't in school that day or anything. I know it wasn't the weekend because my siblings were in school,
Mhm.
so um, I don't know how that worked out really that much. I can't remember that part. But I do remember going outside that day and playing with my dolls. We had this big, huge oak tree in our front yard, or in between ours and the neighbor's yard. And so I was sitting down by the oak tree, just kind of playing with my Barbie. I think it was Barbie dolls, if I remember correctly. And then I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I look up, and there's this old lady standing there, and she's kind of like just an average old lady. She
Average old
Nothing
lady.
made nothing really significant about her. I couldn't see through her, nothing. But her name was Agnes. I never
Okay.
forgot that because she was my first spirit, and
So was that the same day that you got home, or the day
I
after, or
think it
what?
was the next day. Yeah, or maybe no. Actually, no. That's why I said I can't remember the timeline of why I was home. I I don't know. I was in kindergarten. That's all I can tell you.
Yeah,
Um, but for some reason, I wasn't able. But I do remember Agnes very clearly.
I bet you
And
did, because yeah, go ahead. So tell that story.
well, she asked me if I could do a favor for her, and I said, and my mom and dad always said, well, you got to be nice to people that are older. They're your elders, and you
Right.
need to respect them. My parents are very adamant about that stuff, and so I said, okay, well, what can I do for you? And she said, that house over there, right across the street. She said, there's a woman who lives there. I mean, she talked like me and you. She said, there's a woman who lives there, and I need you to give her a message for me. And I said, okay, but I can't go across the street. I said, my mom would get mad at me if I go across the street. She goes, don't worry, it'll be fine. I said, okay. So I ran over there and I gave her the message. I went up the stairs and I knocked on the door, and the lady answered. Of course, she's my mother's friend.
Oh,
Not good. Um, and I
gotcha.
said, hi, Mrs. Johnson. I remember her name too. Hi, Mrs. Johnson. There's a lady across the street who wants me to give you a message. And she said, okay, where is she? And she's kind of looking over my head. Of course, 5 years old. I was pretty short. Um, she's looking over my head. And I said, well, she's standing right over by the tree. And I
Oh,
turned
but she
around.
couldn't see it.
She
Oh,
didn't
well,
see
she
her.
was gone by that time then.
Yeah, she had left.
Okay.
Chicken. Um, but anyway, so I said, okay, the lady told me to tell you that um, the ring you've been looking for is in the back bedroom, pushed to the very back of the shelf on the top in a shoebox with a bunch of paperwork.
Wow.
And
She looks at you.
she goes, what woman told you that? And I said, her name was, you know, being a kid. Oh, her name was Agnes. And her mouth dropped open and she goes, you know what? You shouldn't play games like that. That's not very nice. I said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm just giving you a message. I don't know what this is about or anything. And she said, Agnes was my mother. She died 2 years ago.
Wow, true.
And
So
So I ran home. I was down the
you,
stairs and gone. And then by the time I got into the house, I picked up my dolls, ran into the house, and by
you
the
got
time I got to the kitchen,
your mom knew.
the phone was ringing.
Oh, you were busted.
I was
Did
busted.
you know your daughter was over here telling a story she
Yes,
shouldn't do? Blah, blah, blah.
and she was mad. She was saying that I
Oh,
was,
jeez.
you know, this whole conversation. I'm standing in the doorway and I'm going, ooh.
Yeah.
And my mom had this way of, I think my mother was psychic, honestly, because she turned around and looked at me with a glare that was like,
Could
was
stop a
like,
clock.
well, yeah, like knives were going through me. And she pointed at me and she goes, "Don't you move."
Oh,
Okay, mom.
oopsie. I'm
So
standing
I
here.
just stood there, and finally the conversation was over. And my mom hung up the phone. And which, by the way, guys, phones back then you actually had to pick them up and put them to your ear,
That's right. And
okay,
then dial.
and dial. um, and the cords were very short back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, so my mom says, "What were you doing across the street?" First of all,
Mhm.
and I said, "Well, this lady told me, this old lady was out in our yard and she asked me to give that lady a message, and that's all I did. And I came right back."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, that's besides the point, isn't it?" I said, I
But
said,
you were
"Yeah."
just doing what you were told.
Yeah, I said, "Well, you guys always," I kind of fed it back to her. I said, "You guys always told me that we're supposed to be nice to old people." And so she kind of glared at me because she knew I was being a smart ass. Sorry, my language, but yeah. Um, so then after that, she said, "Go to your room and wait till your dad gets home." I said, "Oh God, I'm in trouble." But
Well,
see,
that's
I was the youngest, so I kind of got away
yeah,
with more than the other kids did. But yeah,
yeah. But that you were telling tall tales and bringing up her mother that was two
um,
dead 2 years, and I mean that lady should have. Whatever was her name again? The lady,
what's that?
not Agnes's daughter. What was her name?
I don't know her first name. I didn't know her first name. Her name was
Mrs.
Mrs. Johnson, as far
Mrs.
as I
Johnson.
knew. Yeah.
So I would think probably sometime after that experience with you that she had to been the wheels had to been turning and going, how did she know that? Why? I mean, you're just a little girl, come on.
That all happened in the same day, Kat. Trust me on this.
Well, I know that
Yeah.
was, but I mean
So
with time.
she didn't say anything to my mom at that point. So at that time, she must have not gone back to the closet yet.
Okay.
She
Okay.
called again, and she
Oh,
told my mother that I don't know how she knew this. She said, but whatever this is about, I found that ring that I was looking for. Okay.
now
So
then, where's your chills now? That was done baseball.
yeah, then my dad came home, and I could hear my mom and dad talking. I kind of had the door open a little bit, and I could hear them talking. And mom told him everything, and she told him about the lady calling back and finding the ring. And he goes, "Well, she did her a favor. What are you grumbling about?"
Well,
I mean,
then your dad must have been.
my dad was
He,
on my side. I mean,
well,
he knew.
wasn't he? Then he had to have been psychic or something to have known, or some kind of gift.
Well, I don't know, but I think he kind of understood. Maybe it was a ghost, or maybe it was a spirit that told me these things. I don't know, but it all worked out. I mean, I got grounded, but because of my mother. But my, my dad and I were very close, and
Yeah.
so and my sister and my mom were close. So it's kind of like it was kind of like a competition who was going to get in more trouble, whatever. Um, so my mom, you know, after that day, I never said a word about anything because as far as I was
Mhm.
concerned, that lady was a real lady. I mean,
Yeah. She
I
was
had no
solid.
reason not to. Then after that, I swear to you that Agnes told every spirit in line. I don't know.
Go see that
Um,
little girl over there. She can see you. She'll
she
take
can see you. She can talk
messages.
to you. Because at night I'd get two or three. I always considered it like a line at a fast food restaurant or something.
Oh, one after another.
Yeah, it was like
Okay.
I would have somebody sit on my bed or stand at the end of my bed or whatever. But yeah,
So did these spirits talk to you telepathically or verbally out loud?
telepathically at that time. Yeah.
What were some of the questions they were asking? Or what messages? They were,
They were like wanting me to give message to their family. Some of them just stood and stared at me, which was really creepy. Which scared me. I mean, obviously, I was a kid. I was still a kid, so I mean, it was
yeah,
very, very creepy. I saw them in death form, so that was really creepy. Um, and
that is
there
creepy.
was this one guy that used to come and I mean, no matter where we lived, he was
He
there.
followed you?
Yeah, it was like a guy in this dark trench coat and a hat. He kind of looked like a spy or something, you know. But he wouldn't say anything to me. He would just stand there in the doorway staring at me.
That's
And
weird and creepy.
yes, and when finally after some time, I asked my guides, you know, Donnie, I said, please don't let him come here. He scares me. But by the time I was 7, I was sick again
Oh,
because I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating very good.
you're
I was
tired.
in and out of the yeah, 'cause I was scared, like throwing the covers over my head, trying to avoid seeing. You
Seeing,
seen the Sixth Sense movie?
yes,
That kid on there.
I see
That's what
dead
it was like
people.
for me. Yeah, that's what it was like for me, and it's very scary.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah,
but you know, the more you talk to your angels and your guides and stuff, they will pray to them or pray to God. And he kind of says, "Well, don't she? It's just scaring her. Let's not let her see those things." And so things started to calm down, and then
mhm.
I started kind of getting into what was going on until we moved into the farmhouse. That was the first really scary experience that I had. There was a guy that lived there. He was abuser
Oh,
to his
jeez.
family.
Wait
Murdered
a
his
minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. So, so how old were you when you guys moved to this farmhouse?
probably
Approximate.
probably 8 years
Okay,
old.
8 years old.
Somewhere in
So,
there.
so you were seeing the ghosts of this family, or just that guy, the father
Well,
who's the
the
abuser?
mother must have transitioned, but the daughter didn't, and he was still there.
So
Um,
he must have been abusing her and kept her trapped
well,
there.
he was abusing everybody. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Okay,
And I was
so
the only one that saw this man, and I saw him in the barn. I saw him in my room. Everywhere I went, I saw him, and I think he pushed my sister down the stairs a few times.
wow.
Yeah.
So did she ever say what happened?
No, she just thought she fell. She thought she was being clumsy, but honestly, I had him almost try to push me down the stairs, but thank God I was holding on to the railing, so I kind of held myself back. You know those like wooden slats and stair rails.
Yeah, yeah.
I grabbed hold of that, and he wasn't able to push me
You couldn't
down the
do it.
stairs. And I
I
was
think,
always going and sleeping with my mom and dad because I was scared to death.
but they
And
didn't ask you why aren't you sleeping in your own bed, child?
they just assumed I was having nightmares. You
And
know,
you were having waking nightmares.
yeah. And
So okay, so was he wasn't the only one that was appearing then. It was the other spirits coming in too, or what?
in the farmhouse, it was just him. It was him and his daughter. But I didn't find his daughter till like about after about a year of us living there.
What do you mean find her?
She was in the attic.
She
So
was in the attic. He had her stuck in the attic,
well, he was
so she died.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had actually no. He had thrown her off the top of the landing for the okay. The stairs went up and the landing right here where the bedrooms and stuff were. He threw her off that, and she broke her neck.
What an evil.
Yeah, he was. He was. He kept pulling me out of bed. He'd grab hold of my leg, yank me out of bed, all kinds of stuff. So,
So wasn't Ishtani with you a lot of the times? How come she didn't stop him, or you had to ask for help?
well, I
Yeah.
did ask, and I was told you have to go through these challenges so that you can help other people
Okay. Well,
deal
that
with
makes
this.
sense. Yeah, because
I said, well, gee, thanks. Thanks for the help.
who told you that?
Miss Donna.
So okay, so Eli,
They didn't allow me to be harmed.
well,
But
pulling you out of the bed by your leg, you could have pulled you all the way down the stairs. And he
yeah, but
tried to push you down the stairs.
he didn't usually do that. So he just was trying
Oh,
to
good.
scare me. He's trying to scare me.
Ah, well, he succeeded. What a
That was
jerk.
pretty powerful for a young psychic. I could kind of. I just told him. I said, you're not going to do this to me anymore. I said, I
Good.
won't allow it.
How old were you when you said that to him?
It's probably the same age because we
7,
moved shortly after
8.
that. Yeah, probably about 8. Yeah,
No, that's pretty good for an
I was a tough
eight-year-old
kid.
girl.
I was a
I
tough kid.
guess
No,
so.
and nobody in my family knew. See, because my family was very religious, so I was afraid they'd throw me in a rubber room someplace and lock
That's why
me
you
up.
didn't say anything.
Right. I was afraid they were going to think I was communicating with demons or something.
Yeah. And then
So
try to get you exercised and surround you
I
with
did
ghosts.
know I did know that my grandfather had some kind of strange ability when I was a very little kid.
But
Be, and I'll tell you about that some other
not
time.
this
But
time. You can count on it. So okay, so you guys left the farmhouse not too long after, or after you had
right,
moved in, or what?
actually,
Why
the
was that?
farmhouse is right on Route 66 down in
Really?
Illinois. Yes,
Oh, freaky.
it's very cool.
So if you were to go back now, would you recognize
The house actually burnt down.
that farm?
Yes,
Oh, maybe somebody burnt it down.
this thing, this man who turned into this thing. I'm telling you, he was a thing to
It
me.
was a demonic.
Our cat had kittens, and it had it up in the barn loft where the hay was and stuff.
Hmm.
And my sister and my dad thought it was like a tomcat that had killed them. But we went up there, and their little body parts were all over the place. It
Oh
was
my goddess!
it wasn't
Oh,
it wasn't a tomcat because there was no.
bite
My
marks.
dad came up and looked, and he says, "Well, it's got to be a tomcat," but it couldn't have been the way that they were, like their heads pulled off, and
Oh my God, that is a demon. Was a demon.
yeah, he really was a dark soul, very dark. So
So then you guys found out that the house burned down.
I found out the house burned down last time we went to Illinois. Russ and I. My
Oh,
sister told me that it
and you
burned
had
down.
any idea how long after you guys had left?
Oh God, I don't know, but I swear I told my sister first thing when she told me. I said, "That's that guy I told you about. That's that guy. I'm telling you, he set the fire. I think somebody was living there. He's probably trying to kill him. I mean, wouldn't surprise me. But
But the house got burned down,
hmm
which was probably a good thing. And then they should have salted the earth.
well, I didn't want to go there after even after it burned down because it was a pretty traumatic encounter. I mean, I would probably now, but maybe I don't know. I don't know. There's a certain places I don't go back to if I don't feel comfortable there. So, cat, you froze up. Where are you? Well, anyway, um, cat has frozen up, so I will continue on, I guess. Anyway, after we left there, I moved. Our whole family moved up here to Washington State, where I am now living. Um, been moved a lot of places in my life, but yeah, went through a lot of stuff. Oh no, but I'm still here. Yeah. So no, it's not. Uh, cat. Huh? We're good. Yeah. Anyway, so when Kat gets back, I know she'll probably pop back in here pretty quick. When she does that, then I will continue with whatever questions she has for me. Uh, yeah, it's got to be on her end, I guess. So, Catalina, where are you? Anyway, so yeah, it's been an interesting journey for me over the years. Went through several about the age of 10. Started losing. I lost my grandfather Christmas Day. Um, then I lost my other grandpa 3 months later in February. And then a year later, I lost my grandma, my mom's mom. And then in 1976, I lost my other grandma. So I've been through a lot of deaths and had to learn about everything about grief. And it's not an easy task to um, perceive it. I tell people all the time because a lot of people all the time will say something about uh, something about, well, you should get over it. You know, it's been what 3 months or whatever. Grief is timeless. I mean, you never will get over it unless you know you're ready to get over it. This is your choice. It's your free will. You get through it when you can. So yeah. Um. Okay, I'm backstage. Why am I backstage? Okay. Something's not happening. Something's going on here. I have full bars. I don't know what's going on with Kat. There she is.
Oh, this
Hello,
thing is
Kat.
recording.
Yeah,
I thought I hit end of broadcast. Oh, yeah, wasn't that weird?
yeah. It kept continuing on.
That was weird because right when I said about burning that blah blah blah, and then it blip. What? Did you
Yeah,
see it?
Kat.
Did,
Yeah, I just went. "Pfft, you're gone." I was sitting there trying to think of something to say because. So I talked a
also,
little
it,
bit about grief and losing losing my
criminally sakes.
losing my grandparents and how traumatic it was. So
Sorry about that, people. It was totally unexpected, and it was interesting how that happened because we were right in the middle of this story, her
yeah.
story, and then speaking about this thing.
And I had just said I don't want to. I don't go to places I'm uncomfortable with anymore. So
That's good reason. And what? All right,
I continued my thought while you after you disappeared.
I'm glad. Uh, check the room for me.
I don't feel anything. Like
I'm feeling something. All right. Continue talking. I'm just gonna go get my
okay,
chimes over here.
yes, do that.
I will.
Catalina has some chimes that she uses to clear the energy, and so she's going to do that at her space. I don't usually get any problems there. I've never really had any problems. So other than a couple places that we investigated over the years, but yeah, there she is, jingling. Sounds like Tinkerbell. There she is.
Sorry about that.
That's
This is a very unusual podcast.
yes, it's okay.
But let me just say that a lot of times when gifted people like us are communicating and we're telling, truth and our stories and stuff,
Hmm.
things like this happen.
Yes, they do. quite
And
quite
so
often, actually. So
you all just witness it. And I'm sorry if I came back with any
that's why I
cuss
kept.
words.
That's why I kept talking.
You're a trooper, girl.
Ah,
Okay, so we're not ending this broadcast. Still going.
it's still going.
All right. So I missed whatever you were saying after the lights went out.
Okay. I was talking about. I kind of knew what happened because we were talking about that dark spirit, and yeah, and yeah. So
Okay.
I was
So
talking about at about the age of 10. I started losing my grandparents and how traumatic that was for me. But I had to learn so that I could help people with their grief.
yes, same here.
So
Wow.
went through an abusive relationship at the age of 18. Lived with the person for 3.5 years. Got rid of him. Thank God. He was a demon.
Yes.
I thought he was a demon. But then I met my Henny,
And you met Mr. Wells.
Mr. Russell. Yeah.
Okay.
And together ever since. So,
So after this NDE,
mm-hmm.
um, and well, you've already been saying. So my question was going to be, when you experienced this near-death experience, and you came back with this gift of mediumship,
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus told you, well, you have things that you need to do for me, and you've been doing that. So my
Yes.
question was going to be, how has that NDE affected your life up to this point today, and after all these years, uh, and you being a psychic medium has helped you? Well, you just answered all of it. Uh, that's quite a story you got there, girl. Now you did say something before that that wasn't the only time that you had experienced
Right.
NDE.
Right.
Do you want to share that?
Well, there was a few more times. I was a kid. It was when we were still living in the farmhouse before we left there. Or maybe it wasn't. It might have been another house, but it seems like it was the farmhouse because it was a really big house. So that was the only one we really ever had that big. But my sister and I were sitting in my parents' room. My sister was well, we weren't sitting, but my sister was sitting at my mom's makeup table, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And she was putting on my mom's makeup. She was 10 years older than me. So imagine me, she was like 18 years old by this time, and I'm like 8 years old.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm jumping on the bed with my socks on, which she said, don't jump on the bed with your socks on, you're going to fall. And what happens?
You
She had to
fell.
say it. She had to say it. So what happened was I slipped. I went to do a belly flop. And in those days, the headboard and the footboard were made out of iron.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So when I went to do a belly flop, my head right here in my eye, I hit and I
Oh,
knocked
jeez.
knocked myself out. My sister was carrying me down the stairs bleeding, and
Oh,
I'm like out like this, and she's trying to get me down the stairs. And my parents and my aunt and uncle were there, and they were all playing cards. And my sister screaming, Mom, come get Sandy. I think I killed her.
oh, oh.
She was totally freaking out. So they took me to the emergency room, and I'm laying there. You know those big lights that are above the examining tables? Yeah, the
Yes.
big bright ones. I was laying on the table, and I could see the doctor put a shot in my head to deaden it.
Yeah.
And then my mom and dad are standing on this side. My dad's turning green. My the doctor and the nurse were standing on this side of the bed, and down at the foot of the bed, I saw Ashtani.
Oh, she was there.
Yeah, she smiled at me, and she actually moved her mouth this time.
She did.
But she did it not like where anybody could hear her,
Yeah.
but it was like, "Don't worry," and then she left.
That's
These
cool. That
these
was
are like out of body, not really even out of body. It's just experiences with my guides, which yeah. The second time was when we were in a car accident in Montana. It was just me. It was my mom, my oldest sister, my brother, and me and my other sister Sue. Um, the van. It was a Volkswagen van, 1960. It was a brand new van. I remember that. And we're driving down the road. Mom got tired and she dozed off. We were all sleeping, and she dozed off and woke herself. Startled herself back to sleep. And the wheels were kind of like flat like this, so she jerked it really hard, and the van started rolling, and
oh, flipped.
went down this embankment and
Oh,
ended up
jeez.
against like a barbed wire fence at the bottom. Um,
Wow.
my oldest sister flew through the windshield. My mom, her arms were full of glass from the windows. My brother was laying on top of me, and my sister was kind of on the floor. After it all, none of us had seatbelts on. I mean,
Did they? They didn't have seatbelts back then, did they?
no.
Yeah.
I was sleeping in the back, and the door used to open up, like this way, kind of like the new cars today. They'd open up. Well, it was kind of halfway rolled up on one side, like this. I didn't fly out, thank God. I ended up flying.
Because your brother was
Yeah,
on your body and kept you from
right.
flying out.
I flew into the next seat, and then he was flipping around. I was flipping around, but he ended up landing on me.
He protected you.
He was like he was like 16 at that time, so he was a pretty big guy. He was like over 6 foot. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
you were covered good.
yeah, that's for sure. But I still had glass on me. My sister, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what happened to my other sister, but she was in shock. So was I.
She went through the window. Which one
No, I have two sisters. The oldest one went through the windshield. My other sister, who is like 4 years older than me,
was on the floor?
um, I think she ended up on the floor or something. I can't remember exactly, but
But what about the sister who flew through the windshield?
uh, she was fine. She was fine.
Wow,
She
you
got
think?
hit in the head. She got hit in the head with a wooden bench that sat between the seats. Um, but other than that, she was fine.
Wow, that's amazing.
Tell me somebody wasn't watching over us that day.
Yes, and your mom just had glass in her arms, so
Yeah,
and
glass. The weird part was is as back then in Montana or anywhere back then, if you were out in the middle of nowhere, you were out in the middle of nowhere. There was no phones, there was no gas stations, there was nothing. But my mom bleeding everywhere. My brother tore his T-shirt off and put it around her
her.
arms. And they walked. I don't know how far to this farm. And there was this old colored man who lived there, and he brought them back in the truck. And then they had called the ambulance while they were at his house. And he gave them warm clothes to put on and everything because everybody was in shock. It was just like it was cold. Um,
Wow.
and we were kind of just laying on the ground. My oldest sister was there taking care of us, and so they came back. Then a trucker stopped, and he put me and my other sister, not my oldest sister, but my sister 4 years older than me, Sue, put us in the cab of his truck to keep us warm.
Yeah.
And then the
Wow.
ambulance came. The ambulance was a hearse.
Oh, jeez.
That was
No
fun.
worries. It's just
Yeah, I got put.
ambulance.
I got put in the back, which was
Oh,
in one of those ambulance bed, the gurney
oh,
things.
oh,
Yeah.
Gertie's. I thought you said I got put in a bag. I'm going,
I thought
dang.
no, 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 no. They covered me
Oh,
with blankets and stuff. But then when we got to the hospital, they were such nice people. They took really good care of us. Took forever for my mom to have them. They picked every piece of
oh,
glass out of her
man.
arms. It was horrible. Then my my brother or maybe my sister, I'm not sure. One of them called my dad, who was at home, because he couldn't take off work. And I'm not kidding you, Kat. I don't know how he did it. God must have put wings on that car because he was there the very next morning. And Hardin is probably, I don't know, it's pretty far into Montana. So, yeah,
Wow.
I don't know how he got there. Him and
He
my
went
dog,
through a portal.
maybe, but he was there,
Yeah.
and he was like panicked because his
Oh, I
whole
bet.
family's in
His
that
whole
car.
family, man.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it was a trippy
Wow.
thing, and she was there too. And Shawnee was there too. My mom and my brother were trying to get me out of the van, and she was standing kind of behind them. I could see her.
So you could see her.
Yeah, and she just smiled at me again and just
Like,
went away. I mean, she was always there for me. I didn't know her name at the time. When I first met her or really was aware of her, I called her Helen because that was the first name that popped into my head. But
maybe that was her name when she was alive.
maybe I don't know, but she wouldn't. I don't think so because she was
Or was she like an ascended
yeah,
being,
she was like no, she was a
archangel?
Indian, not like Native American, but from India.
Indian, Indian,
Yeah,
India, Indian.
Yes, and she chose to be
Wow.
my guide. Yeah. Um, I've been through a lot, and but I can tell you, it's an interesting life. I had about 10 years from the time my first grandfather, passed away on Christmas Day, no less. And I think I told them this while you were disappeared.
Mhm.
Um,
Poof.
but
I was gone.
I had all my grandparents pass away within a very short time, at least three of them. Um, and it was very traumatic. And then I went through the abuse. I had to have a surgery. I went from like 10 years old till about 21 years old when I met Russ, and I didn't use my abilities that whole time because
Why?
I too much trauma. I just couldn't deal with it. I
Okay.
was not going to deal with somebody else's issues when I had my own. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if you had called Ishtani to come forth, she probably would have popped in. But
she
perhaps you
was there.
were.
She was
She
there
was there.
because when I had my appendix taken out, she was there. Um, I actually had kind of like a floating out of body experience during my surgery. Um, I could see what the doctor was doing and everything. And then, of course, I just kind of flipped back into my body and I was good. But I sensed that she was there. I could feel she was there. She just
You
didn't show
already knew.
herself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you already knew her energy. So
right.
yeah, that's amazing. So did you pass out when during the flipping of the van, the car, whatever, and were when you were so
Yes.
you were unconscious, but you were hearing things. You were hearing what was going on around you, or what?
Yeah, I could hear like voices and stuff. But, I heard my mom calling my name. It's like, come back, come back. She thought I was dead, I guess.
Oh,
And she goes, Sandy, Sandy, wake up, wake up, wake up. And I hear my brother, wake up, kid, wake up. And then I remember opening my eyes and they were both there. And my mom started crying,
oh, you're back.
Yeah. And that's when I saw,
That's
Shtani.
when you
So
saw your
I
shine.
did get knocked out. So I don't know what I hit my head on or anything, but yeah, because I was
Ah,
asleep. I was
that's quite
asleep when the accident happened. So I don't know.
total surprise.
Hmm.
Golly.
Oh, one other thing. I had this little pet, not pet, but stuffed toy, and it was a little clown. My mom had got it for me at Knott's Berry Farm, and I carried that thing around with me all the time. And then after the accident, his little face is all scraped up, and his little nose was pushed in, and
Oh, he
and
got beat up too.
and he had this little hat on, so he was hanging from the barbed wire fence. It's almost like Estani put him
I
there
was gonna say that. He
so that
put
I
that
could
there so you would
find
lose
it.
your
Yeah.
little clown.
It's the only thing that always kept me. I felt like I was safe with.
You had a
So
sense of security. It was kind of like your security blanket
yeah, yeah.
doll puppet thing.
Hmm.
Wow, girl.
I've had quite an interesting life.
So since you've been with Russ, you haven't had any more kind of crazy accidents like
Um, no, not that I can think of anyway. I mean, it's him that has the accidents now. So
that.
I played
Yeah,
nursemaid a lot.
yeah. Because you did explain. Oh, and he even told me about when the truck accident,
Yes.
and that he had been the way the truck looked that it there was he shouldn't have survived that. He said,
No.
and you said the same thing.
If I could
Uh,
show you a picture, I would. But it's the car. It was one of those small pickups, like
like a Toyota
uh
pickup or a little.
something like that. Yeah, and it was twisted like that.
Wow.
Hmm. Thank God though, the gas tank did not leak. I was really shocked when I saw that car. I thought, how did he live through this?
Yeah, he's been taken care of too,
Yeah, oh yeah.
watched over.
He has a story, so you could ask him when you talk to him. So,
Yeah, maybe I'll ask him, have him
huh?
tell me his near-death experiences.
Yeah. So
Um, wow.
he's he's been through some stuff. I have fixed him and bandaged him and taken him to ER and everything else for years. He's always breaking something.
Oh my gosh, dude,
Yeah.
that's good as
I'm really
so.
surprised he can still walk. I'm not kidding.
Oh, Girl,
He's been
tell
through a
you.
lot. So,
Well, I think that's about all the questions I have for you.
okay.
You gave us a uh, really good idea of what it was like to have died,
Hmm.
and then you. Okay, here's a quick question: could you see the silver cord?
Actually, we talked about that earlier today. Yes, on a couple people. I think there was other people there that were experiencing their own near-death experience, and we are attached to home or
Or
heaven with a silver cord. I mean,
it's attached to it physically?
obviously it's not. You can't see it. I
Yeah,
can't even see it now, but when I was there, I saw a couple, and they were kind of coming, kind of between your
uh,
shoulder blades. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
That's how they
and
describe it to
I
me.
think it's attached to like your heart space, like God space.
Could be,
And
but it's from behind, like in the
right,
back.
right, and it's very unique. I didn't see one on me, but maybe there was. Maybe you could see mine. I don't know, but I could see theirs. So
Well, that answers my question. Okay. Wow, that was really cool. Thank you for sharing all those awesome stories, your
yeah,
history, the experiences that you had, how having had that NDE, you came back with the gift of mediumship, and
hmm,
you were told that you had work that you had to do for Eli,
right.
Yeshua.
And I was very religious all my life. So until I got older, and I said, you know what? There's more to this than this. There's a story behind this. And then I started remembering a lot more about what had happened to me, and it really took me into that spiritual connection with God and
Yeah,
the guides and the angels and everything. And because to me, religion is kind of a organized thing,
it
and
is.
it's a man-made thing that
Yes.
they kind of keep you.
They keep you
Yeah, they
enslaved to their way of
e-
thinking, their programmed
exactly.
thinking.
Yeah. I mean, not that it's bad. I mean, it's good for you to go and get basic morals from religion because I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in it, but there's a lot of bad stuff too. So,
Hmm. Hmm. And then some people can't see that, and they stay remaining in that programmed,
right.
structured religion based
And eventually
system.
sometimes people outgrow it after a
Yeah,
while.
well, I
But
did at the age of 15. I was
yeah,
but that's another story.
it's because we're light workers, sis. That's why
Yes,
we're supposed
yes.
to do it and then release it and go forward from it because
Yep.
there's so much more,
Oh,
you know.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. We each have, you've heard some of my stories, and I can share those again sometime.
Yes,
But
we should.
I do want to talk to Russ one of these days and listen to his stories. And you guys are a trip, man. You
Yeah, I
seem
mean,
busy over here.
I have to stay busy or I get a little crazy. So yeah,
Well, but you have to slow down sometimes because you
Uh,
overdo and then you're exhausted.
I
Good.
do. I do. I actually I've been better at it the last couple months. Actually, I've been kind of taking days off and not really doing anything.
Yeah,
So
you need to. But so
okay,
fabulous. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you having joining me, and love you dearly.
love you too.
And yeah, we'll do this again sometime. A different topic next time.
Yes, yes.
All right. Have a blessed evening.
Bye bye.
Thank you everybody for turning in. Bye for now.